Alright, so Fortnite is many seasons, so today I'm talking about the most underrated seasons of all time. Starting off the list with Chapter 2, Season 3, this season was crammed in between some of the best seasons, so it doesn't get the right attention it deserves. The Battle Pass was solid, Ocean and Jewels were cool, and you can't complain about Aquaman. Obviously, the main selling point about this season is the Flood. The Flood added so much good POIs, some of the best in the entire game. The Fortilla is such a unique and underrated POI, I really don't see people talking about it. Honestly, this whole Flood just gave so much interest in fights. This season would not be made nowadays because this shit wouldn't fly in Zero Build, I'll tell you that. But even if you didn't like the Flood, each week the water would go down, giving a lot of map changes, which eventually resulted in Coral Castle. There was also Catty Corner and the Authority. Catty Corner was probably the best because there was the kit boss that dropped the Mythic Charge shotgun and the Shockwave launcher. The Authority was kind of mid because it was just a retextured agency and a retextured drum gun. But with all of that being said, one thing the season doesn't get enough praise for is for adding the cars. Look, I know the cars are controversial now, but back then it was game-changing and added so much traversal to the map and was just so cool to use. It played really well. Honestly, this whole season is just a perfect example of an underrated season. Okay, Chapter 2, Season 7. This season was pretty good, but people don't really talk about it because it came right after Primal. And at this point, people were just tired of Chapter 2. This season's Battle Pass was alright, Chimera was goated, and Rick and Sloan were cool, although Rick shouldn't have been tier 100. This season's map changes were lacking. Besides the zero gravity zones, they were a neat addition, and the IO bases were cool, but there wasn't much. But I'm not here to hate this season. This season is crazy good, and I mean crazy, because the loot pool this season was so good. We had some of the most fun items in the entire game, like the Plasma Cannon, the Grabatron, the cow bouncy thingy. Yeah, I still don't know the name of this thing, but it was goated. And of course the UFOs, although broken, were just really fun to use when you were actually in it, which kind of reminds me of something else. Also, we had the last good summer event with the Mothership minigame, which basically teleported you inside the Mothership and made you compete for loot. Recently they tried to recreate this concept but with the Fall Guys, but it just wasn't the same. So despite this season having some flaws, it's just very underrated. Next, we got Chapter 2, Season 8. This season was the Cube Apocalypse season, which was a really cool theme. The Battle Pass was cool too with Carnage and the Cube Queen, and can't forget about Tuna Fish. He's the best customizable skin in the entire game. The loot pool was spiced up a bit once again because there were these sideways bubbles which made you fight zombies for some loot. For example, the sideways scythe and sideways minigun. Now, the main criticism this season gets is the lack of map changes. And yeah, that's definitely fair because at the end of Season 7, it was implied that the whole map got destroyed. And then when you logged on to Season 8, this was the map. But regardless, we did get more map changes later on when the Cube Queen came in with Fortnitemares, and then she made the pyramid thing in the middle of the map, which didn't have any mats or chests whatsoever, but it was cool looking. But yeah, I think this is an underrated season, but not the most underrated season. I think the most underrated season is coming up next. Look, I know this is going to be a hot take, so let me clue you in. Season X is so good, and here's why. Look, this season had so much map changes. Each week they'd add a new POI, like for instance, Tilted turned into Tilted Town, giving us the first version of Zero Build because you just couldn't build in there. We also got Moisty Palms, basically you could turn into a prop if you crouched. Then there was the Batman collab with Gotham City coming into the map, and it was just infinite glider redeploy. I could go on, but these things just really spiced up the game and was just unique. But I have to mention the elephant in the room. It's not Queso, it's the mechs. The mechs were a two-seater robot that could walk and shoot. At the start of the season, they could even farm mats, and yeah, they did so much damage. But with all that being said, they did eventually get removed because the whole community was complaining. And when they were gone, the game was actually fun. People like to say that this season was too cluttered and too chaotic, but I think that was the point. I mean, it was the end of the chapter and just an end of an era in general. Plus, we got the end event in there, which is arguably the greatest event in history. So, yeah, I think it's a very underrated season. But I'm going to end it here. These are my picks for the most underrated Fortnite seasons of all time. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. And, yeah, have a good day.